In a quiet corner of the city, hidden behind tall iron gates and surrounded by walls covered in fresh paint and expensive flowers, stood a private golf resort community controlled by a strict HOA company that acted like a kingdom instead of a business. Every rule written like an order, every member treated like a royal person, and every worker trained to stay quiet even when their heart was breaking, because here, money spoke louder than truth. It was early morning, soft light over the golf fields, small drops of dew shining on the grass like diamonds, and everything looked perfect, the way the HOA wanted it: clean sidewalks, tall palm trees, security guards in perfect uniform, workers wearing the same shirts and forced smile, and senior managers walking fast with papers in hand, eyes sharp like they owned the world. Inside the maintenance building, where old tools were kept and workers took early tea before starting their day, a man stood quietly, his shoulders tired but his eyes soft and gentle. His name was Daniel Reed, a single father, working as the maintenance supervisor. He was not rich, not powerful, and not loud like the HOA board members, but he carried something they never had: responsibility for a little girl, a reason to wake up when life hit hard. Daniel moved slowly, checking his bag, making sure every tool was in place, small screws inside pockets, tape on the side, pliers, flashlight, gloves, everything ready, because he never liked mistakes. He believed work must be honest, no shortcuts, no lies, but in this place, honesty was a dangerous thing, and he learned that slowly, piece by piece. He had one picture taped inside his bag, a picture of his daughter Emma, smiling with missing teeth and messy hair, hugging her school bag tightly, the picture old and slightly broken from being touched too many times. Daniel touched the picture before leaving the building, like it gave him strength, and walked outside into the cool morning. His routine was the same every day: wake up early before sunrise, cook small breakfast for Emma, drive her to school in his old car with cracked window, smile when she ran to her friends, pretend everything was easy, and then drive to this shining world where people judged each other by watches and shoes. But today was different, today was important, and everyone in the community felt it. A famous CEO investor, Adrian Cole, was coming to inspect the resort because he planned on buying big shares from the HOA company, and his decision could make or break their future. Managers spoke sharply, voices shaking with stress. Workers rushed like military soldiers preparing for inspection, and every mistake today was like a crime. Daniel didn't care about fancy titles or big deals, but he cared about his job, because it paid for Emma's school, her notebooks, her food, her future. So he worked harder, moving from one problem to the next, fixing broken lights in the hallway, helping kitchen staff with leaking sink, repairing pool heater that never worked properly because the manager always ordered cheap parts, and he never complained, only breathed slowly and continued, because he knew no one listened anyway. While Daniel worked, the community prepared a meeting hall for the CEO, a large room with bright screens on each wall, expensive chairs, glass table in the center, and technology everywhere, because rich people loved showing things more than using them. The HOA board members stood like actors waiting for audience, pretending to be humble, but their eyes showing hunger, a hunger for money, power, attention. The manager, Ms. Harrow, wearing a sharp black suit, strong perfume, and a look that could cut steel, controlled everything. She ordered workers to run faster, shouted about dust on windows, complained about the color of flowers, even shouted at Daniel that pool water was too calm for the atmosphere she wanted. Daniel didn't understand meaningless words, so he just nodded and walked away, thinking of his daughter's lunch break, wondering if she would smile today or feel lonely again without a mother at home. His mind often returned to Emma, because she was his world, and everything he did was for her. Inside the walls of this shiny place, there were cracks that no one else could see. Daniel knew them all because he was the one who fixed them. He knew the electrical wires behind the new meeting hall were weak. He knew the generator below the floor was old and dangerous. He knew the cooler system was built with cheap materials even though the HOA board told members they spent millions. 2 weeks ago, Daniel wrote a small report for Ms. Harrow, telling her that the wires could cause power failure, even accident, and he asked her to let him fix it properly. She didn't even read the paper, just signed her name on a corner and told him to use cheaper parts, because the CEO was coming, and they had to show profit. Daniel tried again, politely telling her it was unsafe. He even showed pictures, but she shouted, "Do what I say. Don't act smart." So Daniel did what he could with what he had. fixing little pieces, praying nothing serious would happen. But deep inside, his stomach stayed tight with fear. Time passed, and the meeting hall filled with important people. Shiny watches, heavy perfumes, business attitude, loud greetings, fake smiles. Screens showed the HOA logo, staff served drinks, cameras pointed at the board, and everyone acted like this place was heaven. Daniel stood far away, near a small door, checking lights one last time, listening to the beating of his heart. He didn't want trouble today. He only wanted to return home at evening and hug his daughter, tell her simple stories about clouds and trees, something that made her smile before sleeping. But life sometimes breaks simple plans like pieces of glass. When the CEO began speaking about investment, when all eyes were on him, something terrible happened. One loud sound, like metal hitting metal, echoed from the ceiling, and in 1 second the power died. Screens went black, lights shut down. The entire hall turned into darkness with only emergency lights blinking red like warnings in horror movie. Someone screamed. Someone dropped glass. Alarms started flashing. Guests became angry. Board members froze, and everything went into chaos. Daniel felt his heart stop for a moment, cold fear hitting him like storm because he knew it was the same wires he warned about. For a second, silence filled the hall like heavy blanket, and then chaos exploded. Board members ran like scared children, shouting orders, blaming each other, trying to hide their panic behind angry faces. Guests complained loudly, some recording videos with phones, others demanding explanation. And in the center of the room, the CEO stood calm, his face expressionless, eyes watching everything, especially the manager, Ms. Harrow. She knew the truth. She saw the report. She ignored it. But now her career and reputation were burning in front of her eyes, and like most people in power, she needed someone to push into the fire for her mistake. She turned slowly, her face red, fake tears almost forming, and pointed her finger straight at Daniel, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You ruined everything. You're fired." The world seemed to stop. The loud voices lowered into shock. People turned their heads to see the simple worker, his shirt dirty with dust, his hands holding tools, his eyes confused. For a moment, the room was silent, like the air forgot to move. Daniel tried to speak, tried to tell the truth, tried to say he warned her, tried to explain, but his voice was weak compared to the shouting authority standing in front of him. Security guards walked toward him slowly, like they were told he was danger, like he was criminal. Daniel felt something break inside his chest, something painful, like betrayal, like humiliation, like fear for his daughter's future. He looked down, and his eyes fell on the small picture of Emma, the one he kept in his pocket, her smile shining even in the darkest moment. And in that second, Daniel made his choice not to fight, not to argue, not to scream, because if he shouted, if he blamed the manager, if he exposed the truth now, she would blame other workers. More people would lose their jobs, those young fathers and mothers who needed money to feed their families. Daniel breathed deeply, closed his eyes for 1 second, and stayed silent, taking the blame even when it was not his mistake. Security touched his arm, gentle but firm, and Daniel whispered, "It's okay." Even though nothing was okay, he picked his tool bag slowly, his shoulders shaking but his face strong. His eyes dry because he knew he could not cry here, not in front of people who believed lies. He walked through the hall, past expensive shoes and judging eyes, past screens now dead like truth itself, past managers who looked away because they were scared of losing their place. The door opened, and Daniel stepped into the long back hallway, the sound of the door closing behind him loud like thunder, like ending of something important. He walked alone, each step heavy, each step full of thoughts. How will he pay rent? How will he tell Emma? What will she think when she sees him broken? But his steps continued, because fathers walk even with pain in their heart. Outside the building, the world looked normal again. Bright sun over grass, golf carts moving, workers laughing far away, like nothing happened. Daniel stood near the wall, breathing slowly, looking at sky, trying to find strength. In that moment, he thought he was completely alone, just another worker fired unfairly. Another story that no one remembers. But someone did remember. Someone did watch. Someone did not blink when the blame was thrown. The CEO investor, Adrian Cole, stepped away from his guards, walked alone outside, his steps calm, his face unreadable. He came close to Daniel, close enough to see the tired lines on his face, close enough to see the picture of Emma still in his hand. Daniel looked at him, expecting more blame, expecting more pain, but the CEO leaned closer, his voice soft, only one sentence, gentle like someone offering hope in a storm. "Come with me." Daniel did not understand. He stood silent, heart beating fast, eyes wide, like time itself had stopped again. Why was the CEO talking to him? Why did he walk away from the board? What did he see? What did he know? Cameras were blinking red inside the hall, capturing truth that no one else wanted to see, and maybe, just maybe, someone finally saw him. Not the mistake, not the blame, but the truth of a man who took responsibility to protect others. And in that soft whisper, full of mystery and promise, Daniel felt something new open in his life, something he never expected inside a world built on lies. The screen fades, leaving one question burning inside the heart of the audience. Why did the CEO call him? And what truth is waiting to break the perfect walls of this HOA kingdom? Daniel stood frozen outside the building, the words "come with me" still echoing in his ears like they were not real, like maybe he imagined them to protect himself from the pain. The CEO, Adrian Cole, didn't explain anything. He simply walked ahead, hands inside his pockets, his steps slow and calm, like he already made a decision in his mind. He didn't look back to check if Daniel followed, but Daniel walked, confused and scared, his heart beating like drums in his chest. He held his tool bag tight, not because he needed it anymore, but because it was the only thing he knew, his identity for years, his survival. They moved through a quiet hallway where the noise from the meeting room slowly faded, leaving only the sound of their steps, and the silence between two men who lived in different worlds. One powerful, one broken. Adrian entered a private office, wide windows showing the green golf fields, expensive chairs, thick curtains, but no people inside. He closed the door softly, not like managers who slam everything to show strength. Daniel stood near the wall, unsure if he should sit or keep standing. Adrian opened a drawer, took out a small tablet, unlocked it with his fingerprint, and without any long conversation, played a video. "Watch," he said quietly, his voice calm, not demanding. Daniel slowly stepped closer, and on the screen he saw the date from 2 weeks ago. Security camera footage. He saw himself walking into Ms. Harrow's office with papers in his hand. He saw her ignore him, laughing on call, pushing the report away. He saw himself trying again, pointing at photos of dangerous wires. He saw her shout and threaten him. He saw everything that nobody else wanted to see. The truth was there, sharp like a knife. Daniel felt his eyes sting, not from sadness, but from relief, like someone finally opened a locked window in a dark room. Adrian paused the video. "Why did you take the blame?" he asked, not angry, just curious, like he wanted to understand the heart of the man in front of him. Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't want to speak loudly, he didn't want to cry, he didn't want to look weak. His voice came soft, shaking a little. "If I said the truth, she would blame others. People with families. Young workers. They need jobs. I can survive a little pain. But they can't." His eyes dropped to the floor. "I'm used to it." Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying Daniel like he was reading a book with hidden pages. Most people in his world lied to protect themselves, fooled others to get ahead, destroyed families for profit. And here stood a man who lost everything to protect people who didn't even know he saved them. Adrian slowly nodded, and his voice was gentle. "If someone can take blame to protect others, I want him." Daniel looked up, confused. He didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Adrian did not explain directly. Instead, he pressed another button, and new footage appeared, but this one was from today, only 10 minutes before the power failure. It showed Ms. Harrow opening a small cabinet, removing a safety breaker, and replacing it with cheap one, then hiding the original inside her bag. She looked directly at the camera before turning around, maybe thinking no one checked angles. The truth burned brighter than any light. Daniel stared, his breath stuck in his chest. She knew. Adrian nodded. She wanted your warning gone. If something failed, she had a name ready to sacrifice you. Daniel felt anger rising, not loud anger, but the kind that makes shoulders heavy, makes heart tight, makes a man feel small even when he knows the truth. But anger was mixed with something else, fear. Because in this place, truth did not guarantee safety. Truth could destroy him if powerful people wanted to bury it. Why are you showing me this? Daniel asked. Adrian looked outside at the golf field, his voice calm. Because I don't like corruption hidden behind smiles. He turned back to Daniel. And because I need someone inside who knows the real system. Someone who understands the building from screws to walls. Someone who is honest even when it hurts. His tone was firm. I want you on my team. Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard correctly. Me? Adrian nodded once. Yes, you. The room fell silent again, heavy like thick fog. Daniel's mind rushed. He was just a maintenance worker, not a businessman, not educated in big words, not someone who wore suits and talked about investment. He only knew tools, wires, machines, and responsibility for a little girl. I can't, he whispered. Your world is different. People like me don't belong there. Adrian smiled faintly, not mocking, just soft. People like you are the reason the world still works. He stood up from the chair and walked closer, eyes steady. Listen carefully. Money does not build everything. Good hands do. Good hearts do. He pointed at the tablet showing the truth. This is why I chose you. Daniel felt his eyes heat again, but he controlled himself, taking a slow breath. He wanted to believe. He wanted to trust. But life taught him that promises from rich people sometimes break easily. He remembered rent coming soon. He remembered food bills, Emma's school fees, her birthday next month. He looked at the ground. I have a daughter, he said quietly. I can't risk everything. Adrian nodded. Exactly. That is why you will not risk anything. I am offering you a position with salary, with stability, with respect. Not because you want it, but because you earned it. Daniel shook his head, confused. Why would you trust me? Adrian didn't answer immediately. He walked to a shelf, picked up a small folder, and handed it to Daniel. Inside were copies of safety reports, financial papers, invoices showing money spent for cheap parts while members paid premium fees. Pages after pages of proof. Do you see this? Adrian asked. These are the things the HOA hides behind pretty paint and flowers. They take money, they cheat members, and they put lives at risk. Daniel flipped the papers slowly, hands trembling. I warned them, he whispered, voice breaking a little. They didn't care. Adrian nodded. I care. The simplicity of those two words hit Daniel like a wave. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Someone cared. Someone powerful. Someone saw him. But his fear still lived inside him, old fear from years of being ignored, being blamed, being small in front of loud people. If I help you, Daniel whispered, will they hurt the workers? Adrian shook his head. No. If you help me, you protect them. We will do everything legally, step by step. When the truth comes out, it will not be your voice alone. It will be the voice of proof. Daniel breathed slowly, feeling the weight on his chest become lighter. He looked at the CEO, saw something honest in his eyes. Adrian extended his hand like a bridge from one life to another. Daniel looked at the hand, then slowly shook it. Felt strange, like the start of something big, something he never imagined when he woke up this morning thinking it would be a normal day. Just then, someone knocked on the door. A tall woman entered, wearing glasses, carrying a laptop. Adrian didn't introduce her by name. He only said, "She is my legal advisor." The woman opened the laptop, showed more evidence from cameras, showing dates and times when cheap parts were installed, showing email communication where Ms. Harrow approved fake invoices, showing her signature everywhere proof was needed. Daniel watched silently, feeling the truth stack like bricks building a wall against injustice. The advisor said, "We can proceed and expose everything, but we need someone who understands the technical side, someone who can walk inspectors through the building, She looked at Daniel. "We need you." Daniel's throat tightened. He never imagined anyone would need him for anything big. He always thought he was invisible, like air in the room. Adrian looked at him again. "Say yes. And tomorrow will be different." Daniel hesitated for a moment, thinking about Emma, thinking about her sleeping peacefully at night, hugging her teddy bear, believing her father was a hero even when he felt broken. Maybe today he could start becoming the hero she already saw. Daniel nodded slowly. "I will help, but only if my old co-workers stay safe. No one should lose their job because of me." Adrian smiled, simple and honest. "That is the first sign of a good leader." The legal advisor closed the laptop, ready to begin work. Adrian walked to the window, speaking without looking back. "Tonight, go home. Stay quiet. Do not talk to anyone. By morning, the board will be scared. They will try to stop you. They will lie. But we have the truth. And the truth is heavy when it finally falls." Daniel nodded, heart tense but full of new fire. He stood up, holding the folder tightly, like holding a weapon shaped from honesty. As he walked toward the door, Adrian called softly, "Daniel." Daniel turned. The CEO's voice lowered even more. "Your silence today saved many. Your voice tomorrow will change everything." Daniel felt something rise inside him, something like pride, something he didn't feel for many years. He stepped out of the room, walked through the hallway where earlier he walked like a defeated man. Now his steps were different, not faster, not louder, but heavier with purpose. Outside, the sun was still bright, the world still pretending everything was perfect. Workers laughed near the pool, unaware their jobs were saved by the man walking quietly with a folder full of truth. Daniel drove home in his old car, the folder beside him like a sleeping secret. His hands shook a little on the steering wheel, not from fear, but from the weight of the responsibility. His mind replayed the words, "Come with me," and he realized those 3 words changed everything. He reached home, a small apartment with old walls and small windows, but full of memories. Emma opened the door before he knocked, smiling wide, jumping into his arms. "Daddy!" she shouted, her little hands wrapped around his neck. Daniel closed his eyes, holding her tight, smelling her hair, feeling his heart calm. She didn't know he lost his job today. She didn't know her father carried truth that could destroy powerful people. She only knew he came home and hugged her like always. He made her dinner, small pasta with leftover sauce, and listened to her stories about school, her friends, her drawing of clouds shaped like cats. He laughed softly, hiding everything heavy inside his chest. When she slept, Daniel sat near her bed, looking at her peaceful face. He whispered, "I will protect you, and I will protect them." He touched her hair, stood up, and opened the folder again, reading every page, learning every detail, preparing himself for tomorrow. Outside the window, city lights blinked like stars trapped in glass, and Daniel felt like his life was entering a storm. But this time, he wasn't running. He was walking forward. Far away in the resort, Ms. Harrow sat with the HOA board, their faces pale, their voices low. Someone whispered, "The CEO saw everything." Another said, "We have to stop him." They began planning lies, threats, fake stories, trying to destroy Daniel's name before truth could reach anyone else. They didn't know Daniel wasn't alone anymore. They didn't know the quiet man they fired was now the center of something bigger than any of them. The night passed slowly, filled with fear on one side and hope on the other. And when morning would come, the walls of the HOA kingdom would start shaking. Not from loud screams, but from the quiet footsteps of a man carrying truth in his hands. Morning came slowly, the kind of morning that looks peaceful from outside, soft sunlight through clouds, birds singing somewhere on trees, children laughing on the way to school. But inside the hearts of people, storms can wait quietly, hiding under normal air. Daniel woke before the sun, not because he was working today, but because he didn't sleep properly. All night, thoughts moved inside his head like heavy waves, the footage on the tablet, the folder full of truth, the CEO's voice saying, "Your silence saved many." and the face of his daughter sleeping with her teddy bear pressed against her cheek. He got up quietly, made breakfast, packed Emma's small lunchbox, tied her shoes, brushed her hair the way she liked, and walked her to school. She held his hand the whole way, talking about drawing competition, about how clouds looked like rabbits yesterday, about how she wished her mom could see her school. Daniel listened, smiling gently, hiding everything dark behind his smile like he always did. When she hugged him at the gate, her small arms around his waist, he closed his eyes for a second, whispering, "Be good today," and she ran inside with a bright laugh. On the drive back, his phone buzzed again and again. At first, he ignored it, thinking it was random messages, but the vibration didn't stop. When he parked outside his building, he finally checked, and his heart slowly turned cold. Message after message from old coworkers, some short, some long, some confused. "Are the rumors true? They said you stole money. They said you took bribe to hide mistakes. They said you caused accident for attention." Words cut deeper than knives because they came from people he protected with his silence. He scrolled, hands shaking, breath tight. Then he saw it, a public social post from the HOA, written like a statement with his name printed in bold letters. It said Daniel was fired for serious misconduct, for unsafe repairs, for misusing funds, and breaking company trust. They painted him as a man who destroyed the building, who lied for personal gain, who risked lives. The comments under the post were full of judgment. People who didn't even know him wrote words like criminal, selfish, dangerous. Strangers pointed fingers with fast fingertips. Daniel sat in the car, feeling silence loud inside his ears. Lies spread faster than truth. He wanted to scream, to defend himself, to tell the world the video existed, the folder, the documents, the CEO's promise. But Adrian told him last night, "Stay silent, let the truth walk in by itself." Truth was slow like old steps, but lies were fast like fire in dry grass. His hand moved to reply to one message, to say, "I didn't do anything." But he stopped. He put the phone down, covering his face with both hands, breathing through fingers. His chest hurt, not because of the lies, but because people believed them so easily. People he worked with, people he helped, people he protected. His silence now looked like guilt in their eyes. He went inside his apartment, placed the folder on the table like sacred thing, and sat beside it. He opened it again, each paper like a piece of his dignity waiting to rise. Proof was real. The footage was real. The CEO was real. But the world outside didn't care about slow truth. World loved fast drama. The doorbell rang suddenly, sharp sound breaking his thoughts. Daniel opened the door and saw a familiar face. Luis, a young worker from maintenance. Eyes red like he didn't sleep, hands shaking with anger and confusion. "Tell me it's not true," he said without greeting. "Tell me you didn't take money." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I didn't." Luis pressed his lips tight. "Then why are they saying this?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. He looked at the floor, then at the folder. "Because they are afraid," he said. "Afraid of the truth." Luis frowned. "What truth?" Daniel touched the folder gently. "The things they hide." Luis stepped inside, closed the door behind him, fear in his eyes. "They will destroy you," he whispered. "They want to make you look dirty, so no one believes you later." Daniel nodded. "I know." Luis grabbed his hair, frustrated. "Why didn't you fight back?" Daniel closed the folder, his voice calm. "Because if I shout alone, they win. If I speak with proof, they fall." Luis stared at him, breathing hard, then slowly nodded, understanding the quiet strength of the man in front of him. Daniel placed his hand on Luis's shoulder. "Go to work. Say nothing. Help others. Don't defend me. Don't attack them. Just wait." Luis looked confused. "Why?" Daniel smiled sadly. "Because tomorrow comes." Luis left with a heavy heart. Daniel stood alone again, but this time he didn't feel as broken. He washed his face, changed into clean shirt, picked the folder, and went to meet Adrian at a quiet cafe outside the community, far from HOA eyes. When he entered, Adrian was already there, reading something on his tablet, calm like a man planning a storm. He lifted his eyes and saw Daniel carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "They attacked you," Adrian said, no surprise in his voice. Daniel sat down slowly. "They're spreading lies everywhere." Adrian nodded, emotionless. "Of course. That is what guilty people do when truth gets close." Daniel looked at him, pain in his eyes. "People believe them. They think I stole money." Adrian leaned forward, voice firm. "Listen carefully. Today they try to make you small. Tomorrow, they will look small beside you." Daniel wanted to trust him. His heart wanted to believe. But he was human, tired, scared, responsible for a child who needed safety more than truth. "What do we do?" he whispered. Adrian slid a printed paper across the table. It was a formal request to government safety inspectors for a surprise inspection at the resort, signed by shareholders with video proof attached. "We do this," Adrian said. "Legally, publicly, with proof so heavy even lies can't move." Daniel read the paper, eyes wide. "They will panic," he said quietly. Adrian nodded. "They already are. That is why they attacked you first." Just then, Adrian's phone buzzed. He turned the screen toward Daniel. It was a screenshot of the HOA group chat, leaked anonymously by someone inside. Messages filled with fear. "We need to silence him. Spread more rumors. Delete footage. Call lawyers. Offer workers bonus to speak against him." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest like fire. They wanted to destroy him completely, not only fire him but erase his honesty, turn him into villain. His breath shook. Adrian watched him, voice calm. "Do you still want to do the right thing?" Daniel looked at him, fear and courage mixed in his eyes. "Yes, but I don't want anyone to get hurt." Adrian nodded slowly. "Good. That is why you will not speak yet. Let me do the shouting. Your job is to walk with inspectors tomorrow. Quietly, clearly, without fear." Daniel looked outside the cafe window, watching cars move. Strangers live simple lives without knowing how many battles happen behind closed doors. He wondered how many honest people in the world suffered alone while liars stood on stage with microphones. He turned back to Adrian, voice soft. "Why help me?" Adrian's answer was simple. "Because I've seen men like you break, and the world lost something valuable each time. Not today." The cafe door opened suddenly, a shadow entering before the body. Ms. Harrow walked inside, eyes sharp like glass, smile cold like metal. She saw Daniel and Adrian, her smile widening like she was acting on a stage. She walked to their table without invitation and sat on the chair, crossing her legs, perfume spreading like poison. "What a beautiful morning," she said sweetly, venom under her words. Adrian didn't move, didn't greet. Daniel sat still, holding the folder under the table. Ms. Harrow leaned closer, whispering, "Daniel, you poor thing. People hate you now. You should apologize publicly. Say you made a mistake and maybe I can help you get a small job somewhere else. Think of your daughter." The way she said daughter wasn't kindness, it was threat shaped like care. Daniel's jaw tightened, teeth pressed together. Before he spoke, Adrian placed his coffee cup down softly. "Ms. Harrow," he said, voice calm but sharp enough to cut air. "This conversation is recorded." She froze, fake smile shaking for 1 second, like she didn't expect someone to stand equal to her. Adrian continued, voice cold now. "You tried to destroy a man who warned you. You put lives in danger. You stole money from members. And now you sit here trying to manipulate him while the truth is in my hands." Ms. Harrow's face changed, smile dying, eyes turning dark with panic. "You have nothing," she hissed. Adrian pressed a button on his tablet. The footage played again, her face on screen replacing safety breaker, her signature approving cheap parts. The cafe was silent except for the sound of truth. She stood up fast, face red, body shaking. "This won't end well for you," she said to Adrian. But her eyes were on Daniel, angry like he betrayed her even though he said nothing yet. She walked out, heels hitting floor like gunshots. People inside cafe stared, confused by the scene, whispering softly, Adrian took a deep breath, looking at Daniel. Now she knows, he said, and she will become dangerous. Daniel's hands trembled around the folder. She threatened my daughter, he whispered. Adrian nodded slowly. She threatened your peace, not your daughter. She cannot touch children. She can only use fear. Daniel closed his eyes, controlling his breath, controlling the shaking feeling inside his chest. Fear is heavy, but courage sometimes grows inside fear like small flower breaking through stone. Adrian stood up. Go home now. Stay with Emma. Don't read any messages. Don't check internet. Let them burn their energy today. Tomorrow we arrive with inspectors. And then we let truth speak. Daniel stood too, holding the folder, not like paper anymore, but like shield. He walked outside, air feeling different on his skin, like wind was watching him. He got into his car, closed door, and sat quietly for a moment, forehead resting on steering wheel. His phone buzzed again. More messages, more rumors, more noise. He turned it off. All the way home, his mind replayed Miss Harrow's words. Think of your daughter. She thought fear would break him. She didn't understand fear was the reason he stood strong. He entered the apartment, saw Emma drawing on floor, crayons everywhere, big smile on her face. She looked up. Daddy! She shouted, running to him. Daniel lifted her, spinning once, laughing even with heavy heart. She touched his cheek. Why your eyes look tired? She asked softly. Daniel kissed her forehead. Because I worked very hard yesterday. She nodded seriously, like she understood everything. Then today we rest, she said with final authority. Daniel smiled. Yes, today we rest. He sat on the floor with her, helping her draw a big house with trees and sun. She said, This is our house in future. Big and happy. Daniel felt his heart soften like warm bread. Yes, he whispered. Big and happy. And inside his mind, he promised something bigger, to build a world where her dreams are safe from people like Miss Harrow. Night came slowly, covering everything with quiet darkness. But the darkness wasn't empty. It was waiting for tomorrow, waiting for truth to walk into the bright lobby of the HOA kingdom and knock on doors with evidence. And inside the HOA building, in rooms that smelled like perfume and fear, the board members sat together, whispering about Daniel, about the CEO, about cameras they thought could hide truth, about legal advisors, about shareholders asking questions. Panic filled their eyes, thick like smoke in closed room. And somewhere between fear and anger, they made another plan. A dirty plan. A plan to attack Daniel again before morning. Because people comfortable in lies always fight hardest when truth is only one step away. Night covered the city, but inside the HOA headquarters there was no sleep, only panic moving between walls like invisible wind. The board members sat around a long glass table, eyes swollen from stress, hands shaking while holding coffee cups they didn't drink. Their perfect confidence from yesterday was gone. Now they looked like people hiding from their own shadows. Screens on the table showed documents sent from shareholders and legal firms, all asking the same question, where's the money? They all knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it out loud because saying truth meant losing everything: jobs, power, respect, lifestyle built on lies. Ms. Harrow stood at the end of the table, face pale like cold stone, nails digging into her palm to keep control. The CEO has Daniel, she said, voice sharp. He has evidence. If we don't act now, tomorrow we are finished. No one spoke. Everyone waited for her plan, because she was the only one who believed she could still manipulate the world around her. She leaned forward, eyes burning with anger. We must destroy Daniel's name completely, not just rumors. We need something bigger, something that looks official. One board member whispered, Like what? She looked at him, voice low like poison in the air. A legal complaint. Theft, fraud, safety violation, negligence. Everything we can place on him. If enough papers exist, the inspectors will think the problem is him, not us. People murmured nervously. But there is no proof, someone said. Ms. Harrow smiled with cold teeth. Proof can be created. Silence fell over the room again, heavy like wet sand. People looked at each other with fear, because they all knew the truth now had to be crushed fast if they wanted to survive. Midnight passed while they prepared fake documents, writing lies on clean paper, adding signatures they forced junior employees to write, threatening them by saying jobs will disappear if they don't cooperate. Some cried quietly while signing. Some wiped sweat from their face. Some prayed under their breath. Not for the HOA but for the innocent man they were helping to bury alive. Fear is powerful. Fear can force honest hands to do dirty work. And fear is what Ms. Harrow used best. By morning, the HOA was ready to attack. They posted a long public announcement accusing Daniel of stealing expensive materials, lying about safety reports, and even accepting payment from a third party to create failure. Everything written was opposite of truth. But in a world where screens are louder than heartbeats, lies looked polished and official. News spread like disease. People shared it, talked about it, judged without thinking. Strangers wrote comments calling him monster, calling him dangerous, calling him fake hero. And Daniel, who was cooking eggs for his daughter in a small kitchen, had no idea the world outside was stabbing his name again. Emma sat on the table drawing a cat wearing a crown. She smiled at him. "Daddy, this cat is king." Daniel smiled back, placing a plate in front of her. "Then we must give the king good food." She giggled. Her small laugh was like light in a dark cave. Daniel's phone buzzed again and again. He ignored it, remembering Adrian's words, "Do not read anything." He sat with Emma, eating slowly, focusing only on her voice. But the storm outside was growing bigger every minute. Far away, inside the cafe from yesterday, Adrian sat with his legal advisor, reading the HOA's new public complaint. His jaw tightened, eyes hard like steel. "They used children to sign fake papers," the advisor said, voice disgusted. Adrian nodded slowly, breathing through anger. "They are desperate," he said. "And desperate people are dangerous." He dialed a number. "Get protection for Daniel and his daughter. Today. Now." 15 minutes later, 2 black cars stopped near Daniel's building. 2 security officers stepped out, not loud, not threatening, just calm, trained, respectful. They knocked on his door. Daniel opened, confused. One officer spoke softly. "Mr. Reed, we are here on behalf of Mr. Cole." Daniel looked at them with surprise. "Why?" The officer replied, "Because today may get loud. You and your daughter will stay safe." Daniel hesitated. He didn't want strangers around Emma, but something in their eyes looked honest. He nodded. Emma came running to see who it was. One officer smiled warmly. "Hello, princess." She hid behind Daniel's leg, shy. Daniel put a hand on her head. "These people, they help us today." They stayed inside quietly. Daniel tried to act normal. He helped Emma with her drawing, read her a story from a book, made tea, talked about animals. But inside his heart, storms spun violently. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from an unknown number. He answered carefully. A cold voice spoke from the other side. "Daniel Reed." He froze. "Yes." The voice continued with satisfaction. "You are being investigated for theft, fraud, and negligence. Legal action will begin soon. You are advised to stay silent. Anything you say will be used against you." The call ended. No explanation, no discussion. Just threat thrown like stone through window. Daniel stood still, phone in his hand, fingers shaking. His stomach twisted with fear. Not fear for himself, but for Emma. What if this affected her school? What if other parents whispered about her father? What if she heard things she didn't understand? If adults judged him, he could survive. But if a child suffered because of lies, that was the deepest pain. He sat down slowly, head in hands, breathing deep to control the panic rising inside. One officer came closer. "Sir, are you okay?" Daniel whispered. "They want to destroy me before truth arrives." The officer nodded gently. "And that is why we are here. You are not alone." Daniel looked at Emma playing with crayons. Her world small and perfect on the carpet. His eyes burned with emotion. He whispered to himself, "She can't see me fall." He stood up, washed his face, controlled his shaking breath. And in that moment, something changed inside him. Not loud power, not anger growing like fire, but quiet strength growing like roots under soil. He remembered the CEO's words, "Your voice tomorrow will change everything." If he broke today, tomorrow would never come. Meanwhile, inside the HOA building, reporters began calling. Inspectors sent emails. Shareholders asked for an urgent meeting. Ms. Harrow's face was full of forced smile, trying to act calm, trembling inside. She told everyone, "It's under control." But nothing was under control. Lies can be printed on paper, but truth lives inside heavy evidence like stone. And Adrian had the stone. At noon, Adrian arrived at Daniel's apartment with his advisor. He didn't knock loud. He entered like someone coming to speak to family. Daniel stood up fast. "They filed complaint," he said immediately. Adrian nodded. "Yes, that was expected." Daniel frowned. "Expected? They want to put me in jail." Adrian shook his head. "No, they want to make you scared, make you weak. So you agree to say everything was your fault." Daniel's eyes widened. "They want me to confess a lie." Adrian nodded again. "Exactly." Daniel sat slowly, feeling pressure inside his chest. "What do we do?" he asked again, voice tired. Adrian placed the folder on table, adding more documents to it. "We do what liars fear most. We stay quiet and walk with the truth." The legal advisor said firmly, "We sent everything to inspectors. They will arrive tomorrow morning without warning. When they enter the building, lies will break." Daniel looked at Emma, then at Adrian. "What if they hurt my daughter with rumors?" Adrian's face softened. "Then I will stand beside you. And if they come for you, they come for me too." Daniel looked at the man sitting in his small living room, expensive suit among old furniture. For the first time in his life, he felt someone powerful was not trying to use him, but trying to protect him. Time moved slowly that day. Outside the building, media trucks arrived at the HOA entrance, people shouting questions, cameras flashing. The board members looked from windows like trapped birds, calling lawyers, calling each other, shouting blame. Fear was everywhere now, on every face inside the building. Inside Daniel's apartment, Emma slept on the sofa, head on Daniel's lap, his hand on her hair. He whispered, "I will never let them break us." Evening came. Adrian left with his team, promising to pick Daniel in the morning. The officers stayed at the apartment, quiet guardians in shadows. Daniel didn't sleep. He sat beside Emma all night, listening to her breathing slow and calm, the only peaceful sound in a world full of noise. He thought about every moment in the resort, fixing wires, cleaning broken machines, helping workers, saving them with silence. He remembered the look in Ms. Harrow's eyes when she said, "Think of your daughter." Using fear as weapon, she thought fear would make him kneel. She didn't understand it made him stand. Before sunrise, Daniel stood at the window. The city still dark, streetlights glowing like tired stars. He whispered to himself, "Today the truth walks." He went to kitchen, made tea, washed his face, dressed in clean shirt, simple jeans, the way his daughter likes. Emma woke up, rubbing eyes. "Where are we going?" she asked. Daniel kissed her hair. "Daddy has to fix something big today." She nodded like she understood everything, even if she didn't. "Be hero," she whispered. Daniel smiled with teary eyes. "I will try." At 8 a.m., black cars arrived outside. Adrian stepped out, carrying a tablet and documents. Inspectors stepped out behind him, wearing official badges, serious faces. Daniel opened the door. Emma hugged him tight before he left. "Come back strong," she whispered. He kissed her forehead, heart full of emotion. "Always." He walked out, past the officers, past the car, and stepped beside Adrian. Doors closed. The car moved toward the HOA building like slow march toward battlefield. Daniel looked at the building in distance, bright paint covering dirty truth. Adrian spoke calmly beside him, voice steady. "Remember one thing, Daniel. They controlled your life yesterday. You control their truth today." Daniel breathed deeply, feeling the words settle inside his chest like armor. Inside the building, chaos waited. Inspectors walked through the doors, showing badges, voices firm. Workers stopped moving, surprised. Board members panicked. Miss Harrow tried to smile, shaking hands. "Welcome," she said, voice cracked. Adrian walked behind inspectors, quiet like shadow. And next to him walked Daniel, head high, eyes calm, folder in his hand. The same folder that held both his pain and his power. Whispers spread in hallways like wind through trees. Why is he here? He was fired. What is happening? Daniel heard every whisper, every doubt, every memory of lies written on screens. But he did not bow his head. Not now. Not today. The inspectors turned to him. "You know this building better than anyone," one said. "Guide us." Daniel nodded once, and with that single nod, the world turned upside down for the HOA agents. The man they called Thief now walked in front of law, showing truth piece by piece, wire by wire, document by document. And somewhere in the corner of the room, hidden behind glass door, Miss Harrow watched him. Her face twisted with anger and fear both fighting inside. She whispered to herself, he should have stayed silent forever. But she was wrong. Daniel's silence yesterday protected others. Daniel's voice today will destroy lies. The air inside the HOA building felt heavy, like someone poured silence into the room. Every step the inspectors took sounded loud on the clean marble floor, loud like truth knocking on doors that had been closed for too long. Workers stopped what they were doing, holding papers in midair, staring at the group walking past them. Some recognized Daniel and looked confused, some surprised, some ashamed because they believed the lies yesterday. Daniel walked straight, his face calm, his eyes steady, the folder in his hand like a shield made from quiet pain and quiet strength. Adrian walked beside him, tall, silent, sharp eyes scanning every detail. Inspectors walked in front, 3 of them, 2 men and 1 woman, all wearing official badges that held more power today than any fake announcement the HOA posted last night. They entered the main lobby where the board waited, trying to smile, sweating under expensive suits. Lights were bright, walls shining, everything looking rich and perfect from outside. But inside those walls were cracks, real cracks, hidden behind paint. Miss Harrow stood in the center like queen of a kingdom built on cardboard. She stepped forward, hands together, fake kindness on her face. "Welcome," she said, voice soft but shaking inside. "How may we help?" The lead inspector didn't let her finish. He showed his badge and spoke clearly. "We are here for full safety inspection, finance review, and document verification." The words hit the room like thunder. Board members tried to smile, tried to talk, tried to breathe, but fear was sitting on their shoulders now. Miss Harrow tried to respond politely, but her voice twisted. "Of course, we have nothing to hide." Her eyes moved to Daniel, cold like broken glass. For months she controlled everything in this building, people, money, decisions, rules. Today she couldn't control even one thing, the truth standing right in front of her. Inspectors opened tablets, pulled out copies of documents, signatures, invoices. "We will start with electrical system," one of them said. "Lead us to the control room." That was Daniel's place. He stepped forward, raising his hand slightly. "I know the way." Every eye in the room turned to him, including workers who yesterday read posts calling him thief. Daniel didn't look at any of them. He only walked ahead, showing the path through employees' hallway, past glass conference rooms, past smiling photos on walls that looked like lies now. He stopped at a heavy door, old paint on the edges, lock scratched by years of workers opening with tools because management never replaced it. He opened it, lights flickered inside like weak heartbeat. Inspectors entered. Daniel pointed to the large boxes in corner. "This is the main breaker system." He opened one panel. Inside wires looked messy, taped, burned marks near connectors. One inspector leaned closer. "Who installed this?" he asked. Daniel didn't answer with words. Instead, he pulled out printed photo from the folder, an email with Ms. Harrow's signature approving cheap parts. The inspector's eyebrows rose, his face changed. He took photos, videos, notes. From the hallway, workers gathered quietly, whispering. Someone said, "He warned them." Someone else said, "We saw him fix it alone." Whispers spread like fire, burning lies with slow truth. Daniel stepped deeper into room, opened another panel. The inspector asked, "Did you report this earlier?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, twice." He pulled another document, his report with date. The inspector took it, eyes serious. Miss Harrow stood near door, sweating, trying to smile. "He made mistakes," she said suddenly. "He wrote wrong reports." Her voice cracked. The inspector looked at her directly. "Your signature is here." Silence. Her lips opened, but no words came. They moved next to the generator room, hidden behind thick door that looked new outside and rotten inside. Daniel turned on lights. The smell of burnt plastic filled the room. The inspector looked shocked. "This is dangerous," he said sharply. "This could cause fire." Daniel nodded. "I said the same." Adrian stood quietly behind, watching everything without speaking. His silence was heavier than any voice in room. The inspector asked, "Why didn't they fix it?" Daniel looked at a small box with faded label. "Because it was expensive to fix properly. They bought cheap parts. They wanted profit more than safety." His voice was not angry. It was sad, tired, like someone explaining something obvious. The inspector nodded, taking more photos. Then Daniel walked to a locked cabinet in corner. It looked new, shiny. He looked at Adrian, who nodded. Daniel opened it with small key from his pocket. Inside were original breakers and expensive parts that were never installed. They had dates printed on them. The dates members were told these parts were used. The inspector's eyes widened. "This means they took money, bought cheap parts, and kept the original ones here and used." Adrian finally spoke, voice soft but sharp. "Yes, and they charged members millions for parts they never installed." Whispers from hallway grew louder. Workers understood now, clearly. The man they called thief yesterday was the only honest one in this building. The woman who fired him was the real thief. The inspector closed his folder, looked at Daniel. "Show us the basement." The basement was the place Daniel always feared. Dark, old, unsafe, full of wires and pipes that hid the truth of the entire building. He guided them downstairs, the smell of moisture and dust filling air, small lights blinking like tired stars. The inspector used flashlight. Pipes leaked water slowly. Wires ran everywhere like snakes. Machines old like forgotten factory. Daniel touched a pipe gently. "I begged them to fix this," he whispered. "If it breaks during event, someone could die." The inspector didn't speak. He only kept writing. The woman inspector looked at everything with disbelief. "They hosted events here? With this condition?" Daniel nodded. "Yes." Suddenly, something happened that changed everything in this story. Behind the inspectors, someone appeared on stairs. A group of shareholders, people who invested money in the building, people who had trust in management. They looked shocked, angry, betrayed. One older man pointed at pipes. "We paid for new systems." His voice echoed through basement. Daniel didn't reply. Adrian stepped forward, facing the shareholders. "Your money was used on paper, not on building. Everything you funded is sitting in that cabinet upstairs and in private accounts." The shareholders looked at Miss Harrow standing behind, her face turning white like she saw her world collapsing brick by brick. One shareholder shouted, "You said everything was upgraded." Miss Harrow tried to speak, voice small. I didn't know." The inspector cut her sentence. "Your signature is on every approval." She froze. Faces around her changed from respect to disgust. She was not queen anymore. She was someone caught stealing in her own palace. Shareholders demanded to see the documents. Adrian handed them copies. One woman investor burst into tears. "We trusted you," she whispered. "We trusted this place." Miss Harrow shook her head like she tried to erase the truth from air. "It was Daniel, Daniel looked at her, eyes calm. "I tried to stop it. You fired me for telling truth." His voice was soft, not loud, not angry. And because it was soft, people heard it clearly inside their hearts. Lies scream. Truth whispers. The inspector stepped forward. Ms. Harrow, you are under investigation for safety violation, fraud, and misuse of funds. Her eyes widened, face empty. She looked around like someone drowning. No one stepped forward to save her. People she controlled yesterday stepped away now. Power that is built on fear disappears when fear changes side. She broke down, crying fake tears that had no place anymore. Please, I have family, she said. Daniel looked at her, remembering her words yesterday. Think of your daughter. His chest tightened. He wanted to speak, but Adrian put a hand on his shoulder, not stopping him, but reminding him. Justice will speak now, not emotion. Inspectors continued their review for 3 more hours. Every corner of building told the same story. Lies written on shiny walls. Money hidden behind paint. Danger waiting behind decorations. Workers assisted inspectors, showing broken pieces they hid for months, showing cheap repairs, showing messages where management told them to keep quiet. When inspection ended, the lead inspector walked to lobby, everyone following behind like crowd in old movie. He stood in front of board members, shareholders, workers. His voice was loud, official. This building is unsafe. It must be shut down until full repair. All financial records will be investigated. All signatures will be examined. This case will go to legal authorities. Silence filled room like moment before rain falls. Then, shareholders stepped forward, one by one, turning backs to the board, refusing to stand near Ms. Harrow. Workers looked at Daniel now with respect. Eyes different, posture different, soul different. The man they watched walk out broken 2 days ago now stood beside law, beside truth, beside power that comes without shouting. Adrian turned to inspectors. Thank you. They nodded. He turned to workers. You will keep your jobs. I will take over repair project. Daniel will lead safety team. Gasp spread through room. Daniel himself felt air stop inside his lungs. Me, he whispered. Adrian looked at him, smiling soft. Yes, you. In that second, Daniel remembered everything. His silent walk out of building, his daughter's small arms hugging him, the lies, the fear, the pain, the sleepless night, the truth walking behind him today. And now, in front of everyone, he was being given position of leadership. His eyes filled with water, but he controlled emotion, breathing slowly. Workers applauded, real applause, not forced. Some even shouted his name. A young worker, eyes wet, whispered, "He saved us." Daniel heard it. His heart shook. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying not to break down. He looked at Ms. Harrow. She was being escorted away by officials. Her eyes met his, not angry now, but broken. He felt no hate, only deep sadness that she tried to destroy others to protect lies. Fear made her monster. Adrian called his assistant, giving instructions to start new project. The building was still beautiful outside, but now everyone saw the truth inside. And truth is powerful because once seen, it can never be unseen. Daniel walked outside with folder empty now, papers handed to law. He stood under open sky, breathing like someone learning to breathe for first time. His phone buzzed. He thought it was another threat. But when he opened, it was a message from old coworker, short and emotional. "Thank you. You protected us. We are proud." He closed phone, eyes shining with tears he didn't hide anymore. Adrian walked beside him. "Are you ready for the next step?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." Adrian smiled. "Then let's build something honest." Daniel whispered, voice soft like prayer. "For Emma." In his pocket, her small drawing of house felt warm against his heart. The day of the big inspection ended with heavy air but lighter hearts. The building that was once a silent machine of rules and fear now stood in shock, like a giant waking from deep sleep and finally seeing its own broken bones. Workers walked around slowly, whispering, some holding hands, some taking deep breaths as if they had been underwater for too long. And in the center of this changed world walked Daniel, holding nothing but the feeling that everything he endured was not wasted. Not the pain, not the silence, not the humiliation. He walked with Adrian outside the HOA building, the sun rising higher, warm light touching his tired face, making him look like someone standing at the edge of two lives. The old one behind, heavy and full of shadows. The new one ahead, strange, bright, full of questions he never imagined asking. Adrian stepped into the sunlight beside him. His voice calm like it had been from the first moment. He whispered, "Come with me." He handed Daniel a white envelope. "This is your contract," he said softly. Daniel took it with careful hands, almost afraid it might disappear like a dream if he touched it too fast. He opened it. Words printed in clean letters, numbers that made him swallow hard because he never saw such amount next to his name. Safety director, salary written clearly, benefits, school support for his daughter, health coverage, training program. His throat tightened. So many nights he counted coins like they were stones, making them stretch for rent, food, little shoes, school books. So many times he told Emma maybe next time, when she asked for something he couldn't buy. And now, in one paper, years of struggle moved aside like curtain. His eyes slowly filled with tears. Not loud tears, but deep ones that come from somewhere inside the heart where memories sit alone. Adrian didn't speak, giving him time. Daniel closed the envelope, pressing it against his chest, breathing like someone who hasn't breathed fully in months. "Why me?" he whispered, voice shaking. Adrian looked at him carefully. "Because you know pain, and people who know pain don't create it. They fix it." His words were simple but heavy. Daniel nodded, wiping his eyes quickly, embarrassed by emotion. But Adrian shook his head once like saying emotion is not weakness. As they walked toward parking area, workers began gathering around. Not shouting, not acting like fans, but standing quiet, like honoring someone without ceremony. A young worker named Luis stepped forward, eyes red. "Thank you," he whispered. Daniel placed his hand on his shoulder. "We all survived together," he said. Others nodded. Someone whispered, "He protected us with silence." Another said, "And he spoke for us with truth." Daniel didn't reply, because sometimes silence speaks bigger than words. He hugged two old workers who cried openly. They talked not with big sentences, but with short lines that held years inside them. "We thought you were gone forever. We believed lies. We are sorry." Daniel smiled kindly. "It's over. Now we build something better." He walked to the car. Adrian opened the door, letting Daniel sit first. In the mirror, the building looked smaller now, not in size but in meaning. Big walls, small truth. Adrian drove slowly through gates. Outside, reporters stood with cameras, shouting questions, running after car. Daniel felt panic rise, hands tense. But the car windows stayed closed, screen dark. Adrian spoke softly, "Ignore it. Truth doesn't shout through microphones. It shows through actions." When Daniel reached home, the officers were still there, standing like silent guardians. Emma ran to him at the door, jumping into his arms, laughing like nothing was heavy in world. Her eyes saw only her father, the way children see heroes even when they wear old shoes and carry tired eyes. Daniel lifted her high, spinning once. She giggled. "Daddy, you are late." He laughed, hugging her tight. "Big day," he whispered. Emma touched his cheek with tiny fingers. "Did you fix the big building?" Daniel smiled. "Not yet, but I will." She nodded with confidence like she already saw future. "I help," she said. Daniel laughed. "Yes, you help." He made her lunch while she told him stories from school. How her friend brought candy. How teacher said her drawing was best. How she wanted to paint house with big roof and flowers. He listened deeply, the way only someone who almost lost everything learns to listen. After she finished eating, she hugged him again and ran to her notebook, drawing something excitedly. This time a building with bright windows and a man with tools standing next to it. Daniel sat down at kitchen table with the contract in front of him. He touched paper slowly, like touching something sacred. He thought about his journey, years of cleaning broken systems, of being ignored, of being blamed. But inside all that, there were moments where he kept smiling for Emma. Moments where he taught her to share. Moments where he read stories to her in soft voice even when he wanted to sleep. Those moments mattered more than pain. He signed contracts slowly, writing his name with calm pride. When he finished, he breathed deeply, closing his eyes for a long second. It felt like life shifted from dark road to open path. Evening fell on city like blanket. Street outside grew quiet. Emma fell asleep on sofa again, drawing still in her hand. Daniel placed blanket over her gently, looking at her face with love that fills all space inside heart. He kissed her forehead, whispering, "Everything I do is for you." He sat near window, a cup of tea in his hands, watching streetlights glow. Wind touched curtains lightly. His phone was silent now, no threats, no lies, only peace. For first time in long time, his mind wasn't full of fear. It was full of possibility. Tomorrow he would stand as director. Tomorrow he would choose tools, not cheap ones. Tomorrow he would teach workers how to work safe, how to speak when they see danger, how to trust truth. Tomorrow was his. But sometimes life gives one more test when people feel safe. And sometimes hope arrives wearing clothes of fear first. At almost midnight, when Daniel was closing windows, his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number again. His heart jumped, old fear trying to wake again. He opened it slowly, expecting threat. But it was not threat. It was a voice recording. A woman's voice, soft, scared, shaking. "Daniel," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I need to tell truth before it's too late." His body froze. He pressed play again. It was a junior accountant from HOA. Her name was Lila. Someone quiet. Someone always standing in shadows. Someone who never looked directly at managers because fear lived in her eyes. Voice recording continued. "They made me sign papers. They said if I don't sign, they will fire me. Those documents are fake. Money was taken by the board, not you. I have proof on my computer. Please help me. I don't want to lose everything, but I can't stay silent. I know my life might get messy when I speak." Silence filled room like cold air. Daniel sat down slowly. Another voice entered recording. Lila crying softly. "I saw the emails. I saw hidden accounts. They told me to destroy old reports. I kept copies. I saved everything. I don't want to be on wrong side anymore. I have a daughter too. I want her to be proud of me. Please, tell Mr. Cole." Daniel listened without moving. His eyes filled with tears. For her, for himself, for all workers who lived under fear, who signed papers with shaking hands, who went home with weight they couldn't tell their family. He whispered, "You are brave," even though she couldn't hear him. He sent message to Adrian. "We have more proof. She wants to help." The reply came in 20 seconds. "Tell her she is safe now. Tomorrow, she stands with us." Daniel sat under dim light, feeling something heavy unfold, something bigger than his personal story. It wasn't only about him now. It was about every person who swallowed their voice to protect job, every mother who signed papers while crying in bathroom, every father who didn't speak to avoid losing house. This was not just repair. It was cleansing. He looked at Emma sleeping, her drawing beside her cheek. Big building, bright windows, smiling man. A daughter who believed her father could fix anything. He whispered, "I will fix more than building." Outside window, night looked black but peaceful. Tomorrow was coming with new weight, but this time not fear weight, truth weight. Daniel stood up slow, body tired but spirit awake. He walked to table where contract lay. Next to it he placed Emma's drawing. 2 papers, one legal, one drawn by child. One showing future of job, one showing future of heart. He whispered to himself like speaking vow. First I saved jobs. Now I save their voices. He closed eyes, holding image of junior accountant crying while sending truth. He thought, courage spreads like fire when someone starts first. He sat beside Emma, letting sleep come slow. But his heart didn't sleep. Prepared. Dreamed. Carried hope like seed. And somewhere in the city, inside small apartment, another mother pressed send button trembling. Trusting a man who stayed silent to protect others and spoke only when truth had weight. Morning arrived quietly, like the sky itself knew today would be heavy. There was no loud sun, no bright colors, only soft light through clouds like a curtain before something big. Daniel woke before the alarm, heart already awake, mind full of voices from last night, the recording from Lila shaking both fear and hope inside him. He looked at his daughter sleeping, her small hand holding her drawing the same way she held his finger when crossing road. For a moment he just watched her breathing slowly, thinking how many people in the HOA building had children sleeping like this, children who didn't know their parents were signing fake papers in fear. He whispered inside his heart, "Today, I speak for them too." He made breakfast quietly, the smell of eggs and tea filling the room. When he woke Emma gently, she looked at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy, big day?" she asked softly. Daniel kissed her forehead. "Yes, very big." She touched his cheek, serious expression mixing with innocence. "Go win." Those two words from a child felt heavier than speeches from powerful people. He hugged her tight, longer than usual, breathing her warmth, taking strength from her tiny arms. By 9 a.m., Adrian arrived with black car, same officers standing outside. But today their faces looked different, calm like they knew truth was already walking forward. Daniel closed his door, looked back at Emma drawing on carpet. She lifted her hand, waving. "Be hero," she whispered again. Daniel nodded with watery eyes. Inside car, there was no small talk. Adrian showed him emails from night, copies of documents Lila saved, bank transfer logs, hidden account numbers, photos of shredded papers she rescued before they were destroyed. Daniel felt something break open inside him. Not pain, but relief, like seeing proof of a truth he carried alone for so long. "She was so scared," Daniel said quietly. Adrian replied slowly, "Fear breaks people, but sometimes fear pushes them into courage." They reached HOA headquarters. Outside, reporters blocked entrance, cameras flashing like lightning searching for someone's soul. Officers cleared path, moving people aside without force, only confidence. When Daniel stepped out of car, hundreds of eyes turned to him. People whispered his name like it was both question and answer. He didn't stop, he didn't hide. He walked through noise like someone who learned to walk through storms. Inside lobby, everyone waited, workers, inspectors, shareholders, even some residents. A heavy silence fell the moment Daniel walked in. Silence filled with respect, guilt, curiosity, fear. And then, from back of crowd, a small woman stepped forward. Lila. Her hands shook holding a laptop, her eyes red, fear still sitting in her shoulders like heavy stone. She looked at Daniel first, like she needed his eyes before facing the world. Daniel nodded once, soft and slow, telling her without words, "I am here." Inspectors opened session. Adrian spoke first, voice clear. "Yesterday we saw building truth. Today we see money truth." He stepped aside, letting Lila stand where Ms. Harrow used to stand, the center of power. But this time power came from weakness that turned into courage. Lila opened laptop, screen filled with files. She spoke, voice shaking but loud enough for room to hear. "They told me to destroy reports. They told me to create fake ones. They took money from members. And they used my signature to hide it. They threatened my job. They threatened my daughter's future." Tears rolled down her cheek, but she kept speaking, stronger now. "I saved everything. Every email, every order, every signature. I saved it because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't look at my daughter knowing I helped lie." Gasps spread through crowd. Some workers covered their mouths. Some shareholders stepped forward, eyes wet. Officers brought copies printed from her laptop. Inspectors scanned quickly. The truth was bigger than anyone imagined. Documents showed millions moved to private accounts, signed by board, approved by Ms. Harrow and 2 other members. Everything was there, black ink on white paper, like lies written directly into Daniel's life. A shareholder, elderly man with shaking hands, spoke with pain. "All this time, we blamed the wrong person." His voice cracked. He looked at Daniel. "We are sorry." Daniel swallowed hard, emotions rising. He didn't expect apology. He never expected rich people to say sorry to someone like him. He nodded gently. Truth came late, but it came. His voice was soft, and because it was soft, people listened deeply. Inspectors made final statement. The board is responsible. They will face legal action. The building will reopen only after real repairs under new leadership. The room erupted, not in loud cheer, but in heavy silence turning into hope. Workers looked at each other like chains fell from their shoulders. Some cried openly, hugging Daniel. Luis ran forward, hugging him tight like a brother. "You saved us," he said through tears. Daniel hugged him back. "We saved each other." Police escorted board members outside. Ms. Harrow passed Daniel, her eyes full of regret mixed with anger at herself. She whispered, almost crying, "I was afraid." Daniel's heart felt heavy. Not victory heavy, sorrow heavy. He replied softly, "Fear can't protect you when truth is behind it." She lowered her eyes. For first time, she understood that the quiet man she tried to break was stronger than her loud power. After legal papers were signed, Adrian stood in front of workers and shareholders. "This building needs rebirth," he said. "Not paint, not flowers, honesty." He turned to Daniel. "And the person who will build that honesty is him." He placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. The crowd clapped, not sharp, but deep, like gratitude. Daniel felt heat in his eyes, chest tight, but he stood steady. Adrian continued, "Daniel is the new safety director, and his first mission: hire his team, people he trusts, people who will never stay silent again." Workers clapped louder now. Some shouted his name. One woman cried, saying her husband lost his job last year when he complained about safety. She hugged Daniel's hand like he was her last hope. Daniel listened, holding her hand gently, eyes full of promise. Later, papers were signed. Cameras recorded official announcement. Reporters asked questions, but Daniel didn't answer long. One asked, "How do you feel winning against people who tried to destroy you?" Daniel replied slowly, looking at crowd, "I didn't come here to win. I came to protect." That one line spread everywhere like seed in hearts. People cried hearing it. When everything ended and building became quiet, Daniel walked out alone for a moment, needing air, needing silence after noise. Outside, soft wind touched his face. He closed eyes, remembering the moment he walked out of building carrying blame that wasn't his. He remembered the collapse in his heart, the picture of Emma he held. And then he remembered Adrian saying, "Come with me." 3 words that changed all roads ahead. A small voice pulled him from thoughts. "Daddy!" Emma ran from car where officers waited, her tiny steps quick. Daniel knelt down, opening arms wide. She crashed into him laughing. "You fix big building," she shouted. Daniel hugged her tight, his chest shaking with emotion he no longer hid. "I fix everything I can," he whispered. She touched his face seriously. "I told you, be hero." Daniel smiled through tears. "You made me one." Adrian walked forward smiling at the scene. He gave Emma a small teddy bear wearing tiny construction helmet. She laughed. Adrian turned to Daniel. "Tomorrow we start real work," he said. "Not paperwork. Real repairs. Real changes. Real culture." Daniel nodded. "People need safe place. And safe job." Adrian's eyes softened. "And safe leaders." They stood near car while wind moved leaves softly. Emma held Daniel's hand, smiling at both men without understanding everything. Only understanding love, safety, and pride. Daniel looked at the building. Workers started cleaning signs, removing boards with old names. It felt like world was writing new story on walls where lies used to live. People smiled at him now, not fake smiles, but the kind that grows from respect. He whispered to himself, voice soft like prayer, "Pain didn't break me, it built me." He lifted Emma into car, sat beside her. As car moved, she leaned her head on his arm, whispering, "Tell me story?" Daniel smiled. "Which one?" She said, "Story of man who fixes everything." Daniel hugged her close. "That story is not finished. It just started." City lights passed through window like stars. Daniel watched them, thinking about workers who suffered, about Lila who spoke truth with shaking hands, about board members facing justice, about Adrian who chose honesty over comfort, about Emma whose tiny voice carried the biggest hope. Today wasn't the end. It was beginning. And sometimes beginnings are born from places where everything feels like end. Story ends with hope, justice, and a new journey, because the world changes slowly, through hands that fix one wire, one pipe, one truth at a time. And heroes don't shout. They whisper, and their whispers change lives.